Welcome to the BAM Podcast, your number one source of success inspiration. Do you find yourself looking for the secret to success? Join me in this quest as I interview people who have worked hard to turn their passion into fulfilling businesses and careers. I'm your host, Funkeola Dele. Welcome to BAM Podcast. It's your host, Funkeola Dele. And I'm excited about our guest for today. His name is Mr. Wesley Okeke, the CEO of Headway Labs, which is a business and technology commercialization company that facilitates the building and launching of tech innovations. He's also the CEO of CUBIO Innovators, a healthcare accelerator and collaborative platform that supports the development of innovative technologies. So I'm really honored to have him on here today. Welcome, Mr. Okeke, to the BAM Podcast.
Thank you for the invite. Much appreciated.
You are welcome. For a lot of us who don't know you that much, and those who know you and don't know a lot about, all of the story and things that have gone into you, we get to know you more today. Probably going to be taking you back down memory lane a little bit, and then you're going to be walking through your journey with us. So starting off, can you tell us about your early life and education?
How early do you want me to go?
As early, like,
Okay.
What's your background like?
Okay. I grew up in Nigeria, one of the cities, Enugu. My mom's from the US. My dad is Nigerian. They met in Boston, actually. At an early age, probably about 5 or 6, my mom told me that, kept telling her I was going to be a scientist. This was during the earlier years. And then we moved back to Nigeria in the 70s, where I started working on and tinkering on things. So I was the child. I'm the 4th child in. It's 6 of us. I'm the one that's blowing up and destroying all the electronics in the house and learning things. And it caused a lot of frustration with my dad, but he was very, very, very accommodating. And during the summers, we would fly to the US and spend time with my mom's family. And those were the days I would buy things, save my money up to buy things and take back to Nigeria, because I was so passionate about technology. I try to build everything and recreate everything as possible. But my years in Nigeria were very forming in the sense of learning how to be resourceful, right? Because there was just many things in those days that you could not get access to. And so you had to be resourceful and still dream and not lose that sight of dreaming and being able to accomplish something, or at least what was deep in your heart and your passions. And you're still trying to figure out what that is. You were driven. Being in that situation helped me to not lose heart, but to also learn how to take what I had, what I learned, and then begin to apply it for the future. Yeah. And so even though I was that young, trust me, I knew nothing except I know I want to do something in this field, and nothing's going to get in the way of that happening, regardless of what I have or don't have. So that was kind of my upbringing. And then I went to a private school in the US, a military academy in Indiana called Culver Military Academy. At 15, I started learning how to fly a plane, which was interesting. My mom was like, what are you guys doing teaching him how to fly a plane? He doesn't know how to drive yet. And that was exciting. But during those 4 years, I also began to develop some more skills on the programming and the engineering side. And this was a high school. But it was funny because my skill level in Nigeria in math really helped propel me forward at that high school. And I did really well. I was actually the 2nd in math in the high school in algebra for a few years. And I went to college in Boston, Massachusetts, which was a whole different journey in itself. And that was a 19-year journey to get a 4-year degree. Finally arrived here where I'm at today.
That is great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so a few things I want to identify there is talking
Sure.
about a kid that likes to destroy things in the house. So as a parent, we shouldn't freak out. Just
Yeah.
encourage the scientist inside of them, right? That's great. And also, you talked about being, going to school in Indiana and all of that. I'm like, that's really great. I live in Indiana. That's awesome. There's a great school here in Indiana. So that's great just hearing about your story. Had to move from the US, go back to Nigeria, try to learn a new environment and how that has shaped you. All of that experience has also kind of contributed to forming who you are.
Yeah.
That's really great to hear. So, knowing that you've always had that passion for science, you also talked about the journey to college. Can you tell us about that? What were you doing other things? Was like what made that journey a little bit long for you? And also, was the an entrepreneurial spirit inside of you already kind of forming? Where did that come from?
I went to a school in Boston called Northeastern, and so my first year I started helping some of the other students with programming. So I was roughly 17, almost 18 years old, and that's when it first started. And I realized, okay, I like to build, whether software or hardware, and then from that I like to help others as well. So a lot of engineers have a huge desire to improve, create, and in many cases, they like to impact life. So that's where it started. Then in my early 20s, I was writing this program that one of the companies needed, and Staples caught on, and Staples was having these errors in some of their production with the company where I worked was a card production company, and they were doing some specialty cards for Staples. So Staples was interested in what I was doing, and it was solving them $100,000 problem. So I started from there, and I just for $1,500 I would burn a new CD and send it to them. And trust me, people say you should have charged more. I says, I don't know. I wasn't about the money. It was more about the excitement that something that I knew how to do was actually valuable to someone else, and it was solving a big problem. And I hadn't gotten my degree yet, but I started to realize, okay, this has value. Now, previous to that, I was, probably 21, and I started writing a software program for real estate for our landlord, and he managed many, 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 many apartments in Boston. And then he went to Rhode Island, and my wife and I followed him to Rhode Island, and I finished this elaborate real estate program that helped him manage all the property. And again, then I didn't realize the value I was bringing because I didn't charge him for anything. But then it was when this few years later with this opportunity with Staples that I realized, oh, simple skills can have huge value to someone else. And it's not because this was a huge elaborate system. It was because it was solving a pain, right? And that pain was deep to them. And so that was kind of my journey. And so during that time, I focused on just building my skills technically. Kind of what happened while I was going to college, my mom said, just so you know, my first name's Anwelum. She says, Anwelum, you seem stressed. Take a break for a semester. So this was my third year. And that break obviously ended up being 13 years or so. She said, take a break. You seem stressed. So during that break, I decided, let me pursue entrepreneurship. Because I was also doing some real estate. I became a real estate broker in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and was selling properties, was managing properties. And that was going okay till the real estate market in Rhode Island tanked, and foreclosures were going left and right, were going on. It was really, really, really bad. And I went totally, totally broke. It about destroyed my marriage. And so I packed up and moved back to Massachusetts. But one of my very good friends there that was in the real estate, he said, Wes, this is not who you are. This is not your journey. And I realized, he had said that many times over a period of 3 years. He says, you need to get out of here. You need to go back and pursue, who you really are. And because during that time, I really wasn't in the tech space. I was doing real estate, even though I was doing some programming, and I was in the entrepreneurship space, and I enjoyed some of it. But when he said that, eventually I took it to heart, kind of forcibly because there were things in my life were not going well. So I moved back to Boston. And at that time, I slowly started to go back to school. And then I took other jobs that helped my career that eventually got me finished. But that's a whole nother story.
We're gonna hear it, right?
Okay, okay,
We're gonna hear
okay.
it,
You
but
you tell me, you ask me anything, I'll tell you.
and thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
As you talked about that, it looks like, of course, you started making money, right?
Yeah.
And the stress rolled into discovering, let me channel my stress into making money. And you were making money, you were doing well, sounds like. So, what is it about the difference between making money and really being true to yourself? Like the voice of that person that came to say, yeah, although you're making money, this is not really who you are. How did
Right.
that resonate with you, and how did you deal with that? How long did it take you to really accept that, hey, this is not my route? Like, w-
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
That's good. I come from a Nigerian family, so the perspective on success is degree and great job. And that's so we got to fast forward a little bit. So I hadn't been to our village in 25 years in Nigeria, and I'm there for a funeral. And so I left. The last time I was in our village, I was 14, and I'd gone to the city many times, but I hadn't been to the village. So I'm 40 years old now, 40 something, and I'm in the village, and I'm like, wow, technology, because I'm in love with tech. And I'm like, technology. I see these satellite dishes, I see cell phones, and people are telling me all these things, and I'm really excited. And I'm there for 3 nights. And for the 3 nights, I realized medical resources, education, electricity, and water had not changed in 25 years. And my dad, who's an engineer, I said, how come things haven't changed in regards to the lives of people? And I said, especially with all these engineers coming out of our village. And his answer was, and I was conscience stricken deeply, because in that day, during that particular time, I was flying all over the world. I worked for a tech company out of Denmark, and I covered all of the North and South America. So I was in Canada, I was all over the US, I was in South America here and there, as far as overseeing it. I was flying to Japan, I was flying to Europe. And one of my trips to Europe, I took a sidetrack to Nigeria, and this is when I experienced what was going on. I realized, I says, oh my gosh, just making this money is great, but I don't want to also lose sight of my passion, my journey, and the skills. And so, I studied this thing, word out vocation, which has to do with work, which the Latin meaning is actually your calling. And it's like, okay, in my spirit, I need to separate my calling from what success has been my perspective my whole life. And that was obviously a huge challenge. I was heading close to 50. My wife says, you need to make this decision before you die. If not, you're going to regret it the rest of your life. And so it was a tough decision. We had a 5-bedroom home, 3-car garage, pool, and everything else. And we got out of there, sold it, and we moved to a 4-bedroom because we knew we needed to jump into this entrepreneurship journey. 4-bedroom was still too big. And my wife says, we're going to a 2-bedroom. So we moved to a 2-bedroom tiny townhouse. And it was humbling, but it was the beginning of a journey, right? I tell people, to pursue this journey and gain true satisfaction and success, you need a sacrifice. And even though I was crying in my heart, in my mind, my wife says, this is good for you because you need to sacrifice in order to fulfill this journey. It can't come to you easy or you're not going to appreciate it. Even though I didn't like hearing that, it was true.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I love that. When I hear stories about the role of the spouse,
Yeah.
honestly, I decided I'm not gonna quiet that down because it's always big in stories I've heard of people who have spouses. I think it's phenomenal when you have people who can understand your vision it looks like your wife has been there and no,
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
knew. She's
Yeah.
like that angel waiting for you to really step into your calling. So
Yeah.
starting from the discussion about calling, I believe in this saying that your calling will always call you.
Hmm.
Like no matter what, it's a calling. Whether you listen or not, it doesn't matter how long. Maybe till you die, if you don't respond, you will
Yeah.
still it will still continue to call
Yeah.
you. And that sounds like the case in this. That sounds like this is the case here. And the fact that your wife waited for you to answer the call, and she's like, "Yeah, now let's swing into action. This is
Yeah.
what you're gonna do. This is what you're gonna do." So it's great when you have that encouragement. I just wanted to highlight that, and also shout out to your wife, and really, shine the light on her there and the role that she played in that journey. So from that point on, we've heard that it's good to make sacrifices for
Yeah.
making business, for doing business or entrepreneurship, because it's like shedding a skin and taking on something new. So what steps did you take? You had made the sacrifice, downsized, and
Yeah.
what was your plan? How did you start? What was your first
Well,
step?
that's a good question. Pray a lot, but yeah, I did. But I needed to really get a good assessment on where my skills were, right? And how to take those skills and apply it to the pain points of the people that I wanted to help. And so obviously this can take a long time. It could take a shorter time depending on what it is. For me, I had been in corporate. I think the last year I made $250,000. I had credit cards that the companies were paying off every month. And I did a lot for them. My budget for them was to bring in $13 million. And I figured, okay, this is going to be easy, which obviously it wasn't because everything went down financially for me. But I needed to get out of my way. And this term I talk to entrepreneurs about in the beginning, whenever I meet them, I says two things. One is you really got to understand you don't know what you don't know. And then secondly, you need to find out what your blind spots are and go after them incredibly so that they don't hinder you from your success. But what I needed to do, which took me a little bit longer because I needed to get out of my way, I'd come from this corporate perspective of, helping other people. But I really needed to understand, Wes, what is your true value and who are those people that need access to it? And being able to define what that is. And in helping entrepreneurs, I have this process, which you can see in the back here. But during the first process, we help them unlock and understand their value proposition, which comes from their mission, their values, their vision, and understanding what that looks like from a visionary perspective. How do they plan to change the life of each individual? Whether you're solving a problem for a business or for one person, what does that look like? And then begin to build upon it by, in my opinion, creating a process so that it can be repeatable, understanding where your strengths and weaknesses are, finding the right people to help you complement them, but then having a lot of interaction with the people you're trying to solve their pain. And so a lot of entrepreneurs start out and they have phenomenal ideas. They're passionate about it, but they don't really understand the value they're bringing, nor do they really understand the pain point that their potential customers are experiencing. So really working on that first. And I didn't. I wish I had, but I didn't. Some really good friends kept telling me, you need to focus on this. And I'm like, yeah, we'll get there. But that's the first step.
It looks like you had to work on you and really
Yeah.
make a plan that was
Yeah.
going to work for you, not just jump into it. So you had to really do research, build something. So was Headway Idea Labs the first tech company that you built, or was it something different? Coming from real estate and corporate world, like what was the first business that was
Yeah.
truly
So
you?
yeah, the real estate was the first, but it wasn't tech, right? Except for the software I was doing. Headway was originally called Fruition Tech Labs, and we just recently changed our name and we are growing. The mission is the same, the company is the same. We just slightly rebranded because we're going to the next stage. We're making headway, and we're focused more on international building internationally as well. Yes, it was the first tech business. Now, there outside of that, there are smaller ones that I've helped develop and launch over the course of the past 8 years, and I've worked with about 50 to 60 plus startups.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is great. All right. So, what did you do to establish Fruition Labs or now Headway Idea Labs? What steps did you take besides doing the research and all of that, but really establishing yourself in the market?
That is tedious, but it has to be consistent. What I did was I spoke at a lot of events. But first, I met people. I was at networking events all the time, meeting people. Now, what is very, very critical, and if anyone on here has time, they can watch what I call the Simon Sinek video, which is the why. And it's aligning yourself with the people that share your values and kind of share your mission. And so that's very, very, very critical because you're going to get the best feedback. You're going to get the best connections. You're going to get the best referrals from those men and women. If you just go and you talk to just anybody, which, you do need to talk to a lot of people to find out who those people are. You need to hone in on those men and women that share your values. They end up being your best advocates and supporters. So at these networking events is where I met these men and women, talked to them, shared what I was doing. Either they would come on board as a client or they would refer me to the right person, right? Because they are the men and women that believe in what you're doing. They see the problem as you see it. They see the solution as you see it that you're bringing to solve this problem. And everyone wishes they can go and they can do some marketing ads and everything explodes. But your validity and credibility comes from working at this day in, day out. And so that's what I did. And then from that point, I got referrals, I got testimonials, and then I started speaking at different universities. And I've spoken at most of the universities here in Houston and some in Austin as well. And then from there, you're invited to do other engagements. But during these speaking engagements, if you're slowly becoming an authority in the pain point you're addressing, which in my opinion, you have to be that. You have to be that, even though there may be another 1,000 of them out there. You have to have your own unique voice. As you said, when that calling does call you to be unique and different, and you need to find out, you need to build on that uniqueness. You can't keep looking at everybody else and trying to be like everybody else. You have to be you. You got to be true, as you mentioned earlier, you got to be true to yourself, because from that, you're going to come up with your own competitive edge and your own uniqueness. Now, I do learn from other people, so it's not like I ignore other people. I do learn of some good things they do. I learned from some of the mistakes they made, but who I am and the reason why I'm driven, I need to make sure that shines out because it's going to draw the right people to you. And so over the course of 8 years, I've built a stronger network and I've built a presence. And again, I stick to those that share my mission and my values. And I get calls to do other events. I got one in December, and it was supposed to be nationwide, and they wanted me to speak on some stuff. They were putting a lot of money in the publicity of everything. And I talked to one of my advisors, who's an investor, and I says, I'm sorry, because he's the one that introduced me to this. I'm like, nah, I can't do this. It's not me. It's not what I'm about. And I can't take my why, so to speak, and my purpose and sell it short for publicity. I can't do that. If I need to build slower, I'll build slower, but I need to build right. And so over time, you begin to see quality arise, right? And quality is sustaining. Quantity comes and goes.
Wow. Wow is my word when I when I hear mind blowing things like that. And I think that's good to know, especially for budding entrepreneurs or people
Mhm,
who are entrepreneurs right now. Opportunities that come, some may seem very good and perfect for your
mhm.
business to be seen, or it allows you to get more. I don't know what it is, but then you always have to ask yourself, am I being true to me and my brand? And I like how you talked about going back to say no. Like, did you think about it? Did you like did it was it hard to turn down?
Mhm. Oh yeah. I mean, I thought of them. I mean, there's just a lot of publicity. I thought of the masses. West, are you doing the right thing? I mean, this could be what you need to go viral, and you want to cover the U.S. And I says, but yeah, I says, it's not me. I can't shortchange myself. I just can't. I rather wait another 2 to 3 years to build
Oh,
right.
wow.
And that's a hard decision, right?
So what then? I like how you talked about networking being a major way to start getting people, and so that's going beyond just try to do marketing online and all
Mm-hmm.
of that. That you need to put yourself out there, which
Yeah,
is
you
great.
do.
What really helps to build a profitable business, and what should entrepreneurs keep in mind, just from your entrepreneurship journey, about when money starts coming in, when profits start coming in? What's the reality of that?
So number one is, as I mentioned, sacrifice. So always live below your means. You could imagine I was bringing in, about 15 grand a month or more, and we dropped down our living expenses to 3 grand, which is tough. But we did. So we lived way below our means and expectations. And then is, as you're learning your value, I think for some entrepreneurs, they go two ways. They either charge too much or they don't charge enough. And too much coming out of the gate without the credibility and the backing. And even if you have the credibility, if you don't have the deep experience you need to understand, I always tell people, focus on the people, focus on the people. Do not take your eyes off the people you're serving or selling to, because a lot of times you can fall in love with your product or your service, and that product and the service becomes this enormous baby that you've fallen in love with, and you've lost sight of the people that you desire to help and sell to. The second thing, again, is keeping your eyes on the people and the value you're bringing them based on your own expertise and the growth that you're bringing to them, the service. And so over time, you're able to begin to charge more and more as you see your value and your expertise getting much, much better. And for some, they can hit the target right away. For others, it takes time, right? And so I went from charging people almost nothing, right? I'm charging people, to be honest and shamefully, I'm charging people $100 and something a month, and I'm providing consulting, and now it's in the thousands. But yeah, but I feel confident now, and to be able to do that. And I'm grateful I didn't come out the gate charging them too much and not really understanding and knowing my value yet, and knowing their pain, to make sure I can now see it and I can properly execute on addressing their problem. I'm really good at it now. 8 years ago, I wasn't, even though I had a lot of experience and expertise, I wasn't good at knowing their problem intimately enough to know how to go in there as a doctor and do excellent surgery on their problem. So now I'm a lot better. Now the value of it is there and it's warranted. They appreciate it, right? During this course of transition, you have to get to the point where you start charging more and be willing to get no, right? No, that's too much, because now it begins to separate who really is your customer and who isn't. And so part of that, I was beginning to be afraid to charge too much during this transitional. And it wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for my confidence. I didn't really know what stage I was at in regards to the quality of service. And so in order to make money, I was shortchanging myself by charging lower, even though it was much more, by charging lower in order to make the money. It kept me in a very tough situation for at least a couple years. And then I decided, okay, I need to step out on this. I feel far more confident. I know I'm bringing value. I'm seeing it. And I started charging more, and then seeing the right customers that appreciate it paying for it, and not only paying for it, being excited to pay for it. So that's my advice on that. It is a period of transition and careful watch, but you do need to come out at some point and say, listen, I need to charge more, and you'll find out how good your value is, or how the quality of your value to your customer. It'll also help you define and weed out who your real customer is and who your real customer is not. So I have no problem presenting a price, and those that aren't really my customer will either turn away because they don't see the value, or they're trying to negotiate too much. And I'm like, nah, it's okay. Here's someone else that you can go to.
That's good to hear. So it looks like there are stages you go through. You're learning and then you're improving. So the quantity earlier and then start working on quality while you're building and getting more people in and
Yeah,
filtering who's this for? Who's
yeah,
going to value the value I bring? And using that to inform your pricing and positioning in the market, which is
yes.
great. That's a great lesson.
Yes. Simon Sinek, that video I mentioned, the why, he talks about that. He says, you don't sell to everybody. You just sell to those that really appreciate and share your values. And that really has helped me a ton. We just finished a startup company that had already gotten funding. And so they came in and I charged them much more. And they said, they came back to me the first month and says, listen, we need to be paying you 10 times as much as we're paying you now. We really appreciate your help. And they don't need to be paying me 10 times as much, but they see the value,
Yeah.
and to them it's important. And I could have, and then there's other customers you're trying to bring on board and they're trying to cut you down in how much you're charging them. And you got to very quickly walk away from those. Yeah,
I
they're
like
not good
that.
for your business. Yeah.
Yeah. So the right customers will help you also kind of
Yeah.
boost your value for you to know,
Yes.
hey, this is the value of what you're doing. And then you
Yeah.
would learn how to kind of deal with customers who want to
Yes.
mess with your value.
Yeah.
That's what I
And,
would
and
say.
these guys struggled paying me, but they saw the value in it. And so they did. And they did, and they appreciated it. And so the others you're going to convince. The funny thing I learned is you give someone a really good deal because you're trying to win them over, they still never appreciate it. And
Mm,
even if you give them far more than they paid for, they'll still come back to you and go, well, I wish you'd done this. I wish you'd done that, because they don't really understand the value, nor do they appreciate it. And it's best never to engage with them.
mm.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So your customers will stay. That's what I'm hearing. The
Yes.
right customers for you will
Yes.
come. Not
Yes.
everybody is your customer. Your
Not
product's not
everybody's your
made for
customer.
everybody. And you
Yes.
should be okay to turn people down
Yes.
or for
Oh,
people to say,
yes.
hey,
Yeah.
no, I can't pay you that much. It's okay.
Yes. Yeah.
That is good. So I guess you have to mature in entrepreneurship to be able to accept that, to know
Yes, you
that, to
do.
be okay with that.
Yes. And this is why being in live sacrificially will help you not feel forced, because it's an intense emotional challenge as you're looking at bills and you're looking at, here's a job, here's some money, what do I
Yeah.
do? And
Yeah.
so in the beginning I got this office space, and it had other offices, and if I was to restart, I would never do that again. I would
Mhm.
consider small and resourceful and focus heavily on my customer and who am I in providing value to them.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
talk about that. There's this idea about business that has been formed out there that helps people, that kind of guides people to say, hey, you need to make sure you do it this way. You need to build, have a big company or have this package this way. So that's what's going to attract people. I guess you're learning in hindsight. And how can you advise someone based on that about what really, really matters?
Being very wise in where your money goes. In the beginning, I thought representation and appearance was most important, right? And you do want to represent very well. You want to make sure you yourself as a person is representing well. Your work is quality and thorough. But as far as the impression of having a big business and the space and spending money to set yourself up, of what I would call things that are not necessarily valuable in moving the progress and the quality of your work, right? So you could be in a tiny room somewhere in the corner somewhere, and the quality of your work just far exceeds everybody else. You do well. Or you can have what I did. I had this 2,000 square foot office and a whole bunch. I bought all this furniture and equipment and everything. And I'm still learning who I am. I was very far off. And as an entrepreneur, I was really good as an employee, but as an entrepreneur, I needed to learn. And I didn't really know who my customers were as well, and understanding the value they needed from me. And so here I'm pouring a lot of money into these things that had very little significance in the quality of my business and my value of who I am. And so I always suggest to them what we call this term that is used quite often is called bootstrapping. We help you be very resourceful as a bootstrapper. Something else is very important is not getting funding too soon. So a lot of companies will pursue funding. In fact, they won't even start till they can get someone to invest. And I say, and I wanted that. And my wife says, you know what? If you'd gotten money earlier, could you imagine how bad you would have been? I said, yes, you're right. It would have been horrible. I mean, I thank God I did not get the money and the funding that I wanted. I would have lost a strategic mindset, how to be very resourceful, how to be shrewd in areas that I needed to be, how to think just a lot sharper. Because when you don't have money and you want to succeed, in other words, you want to make an impact and grow your business, you think much more strategically. Your thoughts and your decisions are sharp, they're well thought out, because you really got to decide, okay, do I do this or not? What is the implications? Okay, I don't have this, I don't have that. And this is where the Nigerian in me, or growing up in Nigeria, when I was lacking some resources, helped, because I realized, okay, there's 1,000 things that you don't have that other people have. How can you still compete? And it helps you dig really deep into who you are as a person, and it helps you bring out the best of who you are. And so there are other companies in the city that had $1 million plus of funding. In fact, one of my advisors invested in this company, and they came out, they had a lot of publicity, a lot of marketing, and everyone's like, Wes, what about them? These guys that come on the scene. And I says, I can't compete, but I focus, like the turtle in the hair, just day in, day out on quality. And eventually they sold and disappeared, and they changed to a whole different type of entity. You don't hear about them anymore. And I got no funding. Anyone asked me today, hey, what kind of funding did you get as a company? I said, none. I've never gotten any funding. You have to forgive me because I forgot your question. But
oh no,
but
you're
this is
answering
okay.
it.
This is what I had to learn in the beginning, with not getting the money and a whole bunch of other things that I needed to learn. And starting out, sorry, now I remember, as starting out your business, and how to be very resourceful and wise. The
Yeah,
term
that
they
is
use is
good.
bootstrap. So if they ever want to look on best bootstrap tips and techniques, that's what I would Google.
Okay,
Yeah.
bootstrapping.
Yeah.
All right.
Bootstrapping.
All right, good. We're getting a lot of nuggets from you today. So we've talked about Fruition Labs, Headway, Idea Labs. You are also the CEO of, is it CUBIO or CUBIO?
CUBIO Innovation.
CUBIO.
Yes.
CUBIO Innovations. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So CUBIO is a health biotech company. They focus on pharmaceutical drugs that are being developed, medical devices. Very challenging things happened with one of the partners, that our location one year in 2020, and we found out they had sold the building, so we were kind of stuck. So CUBIO had been talking to me, and I says, okay, let's partner up, and we'll be your incubator. Fruition will be your incubator. It was Fruition at that time at CUBIO. So we moved in, and created some, because I have a copyrighted program that's going online to help entrepreneurs go through the stages without having to pay us a larger sum of money to do that, because it's unique, and we have templates and videos to help people walk through our process. So that happened out with CUBIO. They asked me in April 2020 if I would consider being the CEO, because the CEO had left. And it was like a 6-month, 7-month negotiation. And it wasn't negotiation on money, because they were a startup themselves. They'd been around only 2 years, but they had funding that had come in from China. And the 6-month negotiation was alignment on values, right? Because that is what I build on. And so I had to say no many times, because it needed to align with my values if I was going to take on the role. And then also make sure there was a non-compete. So they focus on biotech, medtech, and Headway only will focus on medtech here and there, but we focus on all sorts of technologies. So we agreed on the non-compete, but when they were willing to align on values and they allowed me to make the changes I needed to make is when we agreed, and I took over in October 2020, and it was hit the ground running. They were a startup that, in my opinion, had lost their direction based on their original mission. And so within a 6-month period, we were able to turn them around, get a little bit more stabilized, get on a new path, new focus. And it was good because the investors, after a year, came to us and said, hey, we didn't think that, CUBIO could do it. And it's really encouraging to see what we have done. And we actually had to do all this in like 6-7 months. And so I used Headway's, our process to implement with CUBIO. It's basically resetting the foundation on some good principles and values and a vision. Just 2-3 weeks ago, we just launched a biotech lab where we have those that are doing research on new drugs, new cancer research, new medical devices can come in and use the lab. And we're building our network globally as well. So that's CUBIO. I'm excited about it. Yeah, pretty awesome place. We just got written up in an article in the Houston, one of the main Houston publications.
That is wonderful. Looks like your own passion, your own company provided that opportunity for you
Yeah.
to become the CEO of this. And
Yeah.
this is phenomenal. When
Yeah.
you answer your calling, it births many other things
Yeah. It
that you
does.
can't even imagine, and you're still on a journey.
Yes.
That is wonderful to hear.
It sets your own standard on what success is to you. So success that has been blaring in my ears over the years has been, when you reach this stage of revenue, you're successful. And so you have to reformulate that based on your calling, right? And true success is when you begin to impact, no matter what business you're in, impact the lives of people and the community around you. That's success. And you build on that, and then eventually the money comes. And so I do this study on purpose-driven entities, and these are companies like Chick-fil-A, Costco, IKEA, Southwest Airlines. I've been studying all these purpose-driven companies, and they've grown small. They grow deep first, and then they eventually get to that place where they just take over their competition. They are known. Studies and statistics show now that they're the most profitable, they're the most competitive. Their employees love working with them, and their partners are very loyal, and their customers will even stick with them even when they make mistakes. And these are purpose-driven entities. So all the tech companies and the companies that I work with, we only will get them to build a purpose-driven model because they are the most effective. Now, they got to take hold of their calling and be willing to dig deep and take a little bit more time so they have a deeper foundation for the sustainability in the long run. That's what we do. So understanding what success is, or rethinking, or restating what,
Redefining.
yes, refining, sorry, yes, that's the word. Refining what success is to you, have to do that. And then you got to block out the noise. If not, you'll be sidetracked, you'll be discouraged, you'll go up and down, you'll set your sights on, well, I'm not where this other person is, and then I'm failing, and that's not true. You got to refine it and stick to it.
I love it. That's one question I really like to ask in my sessions. And it's amazing how everyone defines success. That pure question is, what
Yeah.
is success to you? And I think you just answered it there. That's why I was, grinning so big, like, oh yeah, that's it. I love it. All right. So you've just taken us through a journey. You've also taken us through an experience, and the mindset of an entrepreneur. Really, this is something that I enjoy myself,
Mm.
and I hope that my audience and listeners, take lessons from this and help use it to shape who they want to be, who they are, or who they're becoming. So You've talked about your experience as a CEO. You've talked about the journey, answering your calling and
Mm.
pivoting and making decisions, making sacrifices. And now that you've come to this point, still on a journey, what are the biggest lessons you've learned that an entrepreneur needs to keep in mind to continue to sustain their business?
Mm.
What makes for sustainability?
What's going to help them is grow in humility, right? As a young manager, 26, 7 years old in Boston, the CEO came to me one day and I was anxious and insecure about some things. And he said, Wes, good managers or leaders, they find people that are as good as them or better, and they surround them. And that a lot of people have heard that. But the more you learn, I think as an entrepreneur, and the more you're growing and being successful at certain things, you want to also grow in humility and listening. So I find interns all the way to professionals, and I'm always listening to them and I'm learning from them. And I always tell them, I says, if you're really good at something, more than likely you're much better at it than me. I'm going to listen to you. Don't look for me to decide. I want you to decide and tell me, here's what I think we need to do, and here's why. So humility is growing in your humility always, growing in your self-sacrifices continuously to ensure that your impact is being sustained, right? I think a lot of times we can get to a certain place and it could become about us. And it's not about us. I always tell the founders and the entrepreneurs, in order to be sustainable, you need to make sure your mission is greater than you and it's greater than in everyone else, right? No one is above the mission, not even you. And keeping your eyes on the people that you're selling to, you're trying to impact. Because sales, in a sense, if you're really a good salesperson, and I was in sales for almost 20 years, really good salespeople are thinking of the solution their customer needs and not just looking to make a dollar. And in corporate, 8, 9 years ago, I'm still friends with some of my customers because I treated them as partners and bringing a solution and not a, a traditional sales guy. So keeping your eyes on your customers and what they need and how their pain points are effective and growing, affected, and how their pain points are is very, very important. That will help you be sustainable because you're not going to lose sight of your mission and the people for the product and your material or monetary success. Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you so much for sharing that. Growing in humility, taking that to heart. We're wrapping up this session. I just want to say this has been a wonderful, wonderful session. It's been
Well,
great
thank
getting
you.
to know you and getting to know your journey. And so, how can people connect with you or seek your services? And who is it for? So people can know, hey, I want to go to Headway Idea Labs for whatever I need help for. And how can they find you?
The process steps which are on here, it starts with unlock, which you should be able to see, explore, plan, build. So most of the entrepreneurs, I take them through the unlock stage right there. If they just have an idea and they're interested and they're not sure about the idea or their passion or the value proposition, they should probably take that first. For those that are even starting out and they know what they want to do, they're confident, I would still suggest they take that first. And then the explore is the market. But they can go on our website. We haven't launched the new website. It's live. So they can go on the website now. It's headwayidealabs.com. The online portal will be launched probably mid next week, where if they wanted to go on there and pay for it, they could do that. We used to charge for those. It's funny because a lot of people we do have this online, but a lot of people have chosen to come to us directly where we charge several $1,000s, but it's an intimate one-on-one session and I bring somebody in to kind of help them and I'm involved. But that's the best way to reach us. And we have a free version as well, just to get in touch with some of our resources, which we'll be building up with videos. We have a whole library of videos and templates that we're going to be allowing free access to some of our members that get on for free.
Now, I'll have all of that information in the show notes for the
Okay.
listeners and the audience to be able to quickly access or just click and find. So, the website is the best way to connect
Yes,
with your
yes,
services.
yes,
Okay.
and yeah, and if it's just a general question, they can send us a question in through our contact, and 99% of the time I'll be the one answering. And even though we're really busy, I do pride myself on answering everyone, even if it's a simple question, and if even if it's a crazy idea, I love to hear them.
I think you're very responsive in emails, just this feel and messages, which is really, really great. And I think that's great customer service, really, right? Just being there and available to answer
Yeah,
questions. I want to appreciate you today, Mr. West, for your
thank
time,
you.
for your story, and for what you're doing, for answering your call, like answering your calling and being true to yourself, because all of that is making an impact in the
Yeah,
world. So thank you so much and good luck in all
thank
you
you.
do. You're welcome.
Yes, something I do want to mention is we'll be launching a free version of what we're doing in Nigeria, probably end of May, early June. We have already started the development of this, and what we're going to do is do two things. We're going to help those that are business and entrepreneurship minded learn how to create products in collaboration with engineers. So I'm doing a twofold. One is working with entrepreneurs, but then also is working with engineers who are very resourceful. And so we're going to provide some of the hardware and software for them to build new technologies that can be commercialized not only in Nigeria or Africa, but the rest of the world. We're going to do this for free because I want to help build the not only the tech innovative space in Nigeria, but also the entrepreneurship space in Nigeria. We've seen stuff like this explode from India and now China, where a lot of companies in those different countries are being utilized here in the US. And so why not Nigerians and Africans? Because in all honesty, we are able to do a lot with nothing. And so I'm very passionate about that and seeing that come to life. I mean, my wife says, she says, and this is another story which I can't get into today. She says we were made to stand out. And at some point, I'll tell you about that story. We're going to stand out, God
That
willing.
is amazing, giving back from your experience. And I think that's another positioning of the African diaspora,
Yeah,
learning and taking all of your expertise and putting it back into people, reinvest it into people and creating something unique. I think that's yeah, maybe that's the term standing out. Making
yeah.
use of what you have to build something unique that definitely stands out in the world. That's really great. Thank you for doing that. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. So we're wrapping up this session. And is there
Okay.
anything else you'd like to share with us today?
No, that's it.
Thank
Unless
you,
you give
thank
me
you.
another 4 hours. No, that's it. That's it.
I don't want to take too much of your time. Thanks. I want to thank all of our listeners today. If you're listening to Bound Podcast for the first time, we feature success stories of Africans in diaspora, and we have Mr. West today. We have stories like this to encourage you. It's not just to listen, but for you to identify who you are, who you're created to be, and be true to yourself. Bring your dreams to life. Identify what you can learn from this story today to help you become who you need to become. You at the top. Please share with your friends who also can benefit from this. You can connect on social media, Facebook and Instagram at Beyond Africa Magazine, and on Twitter at Beyond Africa Mag. And you can visit our website, beyondafricamagazine.com. Listen on any podcast app that you are familiar with, subscribe, and share with your friends. We want to continue to bring the stories to build you up, manage you up, to become who you need to be. Thank you so much. And until the next time, I'm still your host, Funkela Daily.